Welcome. So glad you could join me for this session on discipline that builds brains. And discipline that builds brains leads to smarter children. So thank you for joining me. My name is Judy Arnall, and I am a certified Canadian family life educator. I'm certified in brain and child development. And I'm a bit of an idealist because I go to conferences, I read research, I give parents and caregivers information on brain development and also positive parenting practices. But I'm also a realist. I also have 5 children of my own who are now adult children, and they have, I stopped all punishments when the oldest one was 8 years old. So I have raised 5 teens, different temperaments, different personalities, without any use of punishment. So, and they're pretty nice people. I'm quite proud of them. They're all graduated, 3 graduated university, one's in a master's program, and one is about to enter post-secondary soon. So it absolutely can work. You can parent very kindly without using any punishments. So I put together all my knowledge in a book called Discipline Without Distress. And it's all about how to discipline without punishment. Now, then parents said, well, wait a minute, how do I get to that place of calmness before I look at non-punitive discipline? So I wrote a book called Parenting with Patience. And that's all about helping us to get calm. And there are many moments in parenting we need it. And also how to help our children get calm. That's all the book's on. I also have been facilitating parenting groups for the last 23 years. So I compiled tips, non-punitive parenting tips from 23 years of groups. And that's over 3,000 tips packed into the Attachment Parenting Tips book. And they're all supportive, non-judgmental ideas to handle every common parenting issue. Then I wrote a book on non-punitive education, which is self-directed learning. And these are the 2 newest books. Yeah, so if you're interested in those books, they are available at any bookstore, Chapters, Barnes & Noble, Amazon, anywhere you want to go. So let's talk a little bit about positive discipline. So I won't keep you more than an hour. And I'm going to turn my video off because sometimes it just distracts me, but I will come back later. Just a sec. Okay, here we go. Positive discipline. That is non-punitive discipline. It means that a lot of parents, probably 85% of parents out there punish. 15% of parents do not punish. I'm in that 15%, and I'm here to reassure you, you can still raise great, amazing kids without punishment. And the great thing about it is your communication grows. If I sometimes ask parents, do you rather have a great relationship or do you rather have control and obedient children? And most parents want the great relationship. So this is the way we're going to cover it today. So I'm going to use this example because I think it's a good example of deliberate disobedience. So when my son was 3 years old, he wanted some chips before dinner. And he came to me with his big Costco bag of chips and he says, Mom, I want some. And I said, no, we're going to have dinner in 10 minutes. And he said, but I want some. And I said, sorry, no, you can't have them. Put them away. So I thought he put them away, but actually he took them upstairs to his room and he opened the bag, threw the chips all over the floor, and he proceeded to stamp every last chip into his white rug, as you can see. Now, this is a really good example that would set parents off. If you're not angry, if your child did this, you wouldn't be a normal parent. So what is positive discipline and how would you handle a situation like that without punishment? That's what positive discipline is. It's teaching without physical and emotional punishment. Physical punishments are spanking, swatting, there's a lot of physical punishments out there. Emotional punishments tend to be more popular. They fall under the range of jail time, timeouts, consequences, internet shaming, those kinds of punishments. So what we want parents to do is get into that little submarine and look at what the child is needing or what they're feeling. Rather than look at the behavior, let's get underneath and see what's going on there. The benefits of that are kids are in a new world. They are interacting with the rest of the world under our radar, and we need to have a good connection and a good relationship and good communication with them. That is the reason why you want to practice non-punitive parenting. And what's new is that there's no fear in non-punitive parenting. Kids don't fear us. And we used to rely on fear 30 years ago because that's how we get kids to obey. But now we want to keep our communication and our mutual respect. And we want kids to come to us when they have a problem, which 30 years ago didn't happen because they were scared of us. So we're taking that fear out of the relationship. And we need to do that because now our kids are in places where we don't go, on the internet. So you can be a great parent. These are different types of parenting styles. The best ones here are in the green zone, the northeast corner, the authoritative and the collaborative parenting. They have high structure and they have high nurturing. And you can provide both without punishment. Nurturing is unconditional love. It's kind words, it's listening, it's hugs, it's non-sexual touch, emotional validation, and again, lots of listening. Structure is the structures we put in place for good hands-on parenting. It's providing for needs, providing an education, allowing age-appropriate decisions, and the consequences of those decisions if, they're not too harmful. It's giving guidance and teaching, and it's collaborative problem solving for all conflicts and pushback from children. It's setting family rules and limits together that everyone agrees on. It's having routines, rituals, celebrations, and it definitely involves supervision and monitoring, even in the teenage years. It's having age-appropriate expectations, and that's why in all my books, I have charts of what to expect developmentally from children for what age, so that our expectations are in line. And of course, it's modeling responsible citizenship and good relationship skills. So structure is non-punitive and it's not permissive. We want to stop focusing on our short-run goals, which means stop the behavior, make the child listen, and if we're honest, relieve our anger. We want to focus more on long-run goals, which is creating connection, communication in the family, teaching self-control, social, emotional, and life skills, and building that connection. Because when we build that connection, we build their brains. And a positive approach is always, always better than a negative approach. It is. Research shows that there are no long-term benefits to punishing in parenting. None. But there's lots of research that shows that punishment interferes with learning. It can incite worse behavior. It teaches kids how to punish others, including siblings. It causes stress, and we'll talk about the toxic stress it causes. It teaches kids to hide their mistakes as something bad, and it puts fear back into the relationship, which puts the relationship at risk. So why, other than those good reasons, why stop yelling, shaming, consequences, and spanking? What's wrong with those things? I grew up with them. Well, it doesn't build relationships. And smart brains are from good relationships. When parents use adverse childhood experiences, when they cause them, it can impact brain development. Now, adverse childhood experiences are sometimes called ACEs for short, and they are the things that happen to children before they turn 18. It's what they grow up with. We say this is the no-no list of parenting. You can be an attachment parent, a free-range parent, a helicopter parent, a submarine parent, a snowmobile parent. It doesn't matter. This list of 10 no-nos is what matters in parenting. Now, 70% of children grow up with one of these, and that's okay. They're fine. It doesn't impact their brain. What happens is when they grow up with 3 or more of these, that's when it starts impairing brain architecture. Okay, so the 10 ACEs are emotional abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, watching a parent be abused, witnessing parental addictions, witnessing untreated mental illness in the family, a parent away in jail, neglect of basic needs, clothing, food, housing, warmth, a high conflict separation or divorce, or just feeling unloved and criticized all the time. Like I said, if a child grows up with one of these, for example, a high conflict separation or divorce, with good support from other adults, a child will not have their brain impaired by one ACE. It's when these happen in conjunction with each other. For example, if a child has an alcoholic parent and that parent continues with emotional and physical abuse, those are 3 ACEs right there. That would constitute a high ACE count of adverse childhood experiences. And what this does is it produces stress in the child. The child's on high alert, worried that this is going to happen, and that produces cortisol and adrenaline, and that can damage neurons. So toxic stress is prolonged cortisol and adrenaline. When we have it in short bursts, like when we encounter a bear in the woods, it's good. It motivates us into action. But when we deal with it on a daily basis, for example, parents who spank their children every day, what it does is it disconnects the limbic system and the frontal cortex. The frontal cortex is responsible for higher order cognitive skills, thinking, planning, problem solving, self-control. When that is disconnected from the limbic system, which is the emotional center of the brain, the hypothalamus, the hippocampus, the amygdala, that causes a disconnect between those higher order functions that are necessary to make good decisions as children grow older. So punishment, oftentimes it's on a daily basis. Research shows that teens are punished 22 times a month. That causes toxic stress, and that can cause impaired development. So what does it cause? It can cause all these behaviors during the school age years. It can lead to early school education dropout. It can lead to adult adversity. So unemployment, underemployment, public assistance, going to prison, chronic health problems, mental health problems, substance abuse problems. That is a result of toxic stress, impaired brain development, and moving into adverse adult outcomes. These are some of the health risks that ACEs can cause. Okay, so stress is something everybody has. Every child has stress. They have positive stress, which is, for example, starting a new daycare, starting the first day of school, going to a birthday party where you don't know anyone. But they do it, they get over it, it builds resiliency. It's good stress. Everybody also has tolerable stress, but it subsides it's not ongoing, and it's buffered by caring adults. Toxic stress is prolonged stress, unpredictable, and it's not buffered by caring adult. And this is why punishment is toxic stress. Punishment is delivered by the caring adults that children rely on to mitigate toxic stress in their lives. That's what makes it especially damaging to their brains. Now, it's okay. We all lose it once in a while. All of us, sometimes we just have a bad day and we start yelling. But ask yourself, is it regular or is it rare? So we aim for nurturing, structured, kind parenting 70% of the time. The other times we're human. We do mess up and we do apologize, and kids are resilient. Okay, so let's talk about, well, what is discipline and what is punishment? Discipline is designed to teach. Punishment is designed to hurt in order to teach a lesson. So good discipline connects the relationship. It promotes long-term learning. It promotes good feelings among each other, understanding. It's respectful to each other. When I'm saying parent and child, it's tolerable stress, and it's proactive. Oftentimes it does prevent things, which is good. And punishment, on the other hand, is the opposite of all these. And the fact is, as children grow older, parents run out of punishment. As you can see, by about 13, they're about the same size. And as 13-year-olds get money and get mobile, they can escape parental punishments. What's wrong with spanking? The risk of these things increase. Now, it doesn't mean that these things are going to happen, but it does increase. And this is from Elizabeth Gershoff. It promotes aggression. It teaches kids not to get caught rather than explain why it's not a good idea. The child learns to avoid the parent and communication. Poor child mental health in stress. Higher levels of adult aggression, mental health, and partner abuse, and higher levels of child delinquency behaviors. Problems with jail time, timeout. There's a lot of those. I'm not going to read all these, but the biggest ones is it isolates rather than connects the relationship, and often children don't understand why they're in timeout until age 7. It doesn't teach any problem-solving skills, and it teaches it as a punishment, not a life skill, which is a real positive thing. It models power and not peaceful, respectful relationship issues. What are the problems with consequences? The problem here is that children eventually know that parents set them up. And often they're designed to hurt the child rather than solve the problem. So yes, they can be respectful, reasonable, and related, but really, do they resolve the problem? And they kind of violate the golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. So the difference between consequences and problem solving is this. Consequences tend to be one solution that is imposed by the parent. It's designed to hurt, and it is a punishment. Whereas problem solving is coming up with many solutions. And often it's the parent and child's ideas working together to come up with them. It solves the issue, and it teaches a real life skill, as well as a real relationship skill. What are the problems with internet shaming? They're more public than any other type of punishment. They destroy self-esteem. They're permanent, and they can be copied. And really, it's hypocritical when parents are supposed to model digital citizenship to do that to their children. And quite frankly, it's cyberbullying. So there are many benefits of not using punishments. And like I said, anyone can raise a child without using punishments. You get less hostility, rebellion, attitude, and power struggles, especially in the teen years. The child accesses the parents for help, because there's no fear in the relationship. They don't look and say, oh, I can't tell you about this, I'm going to get in trouble. They look at you as a resource and say, I messed up, I don't know how to fix this, can you help me? And that is where they can harness the power of your brains to help them. Children have more responsibility and control their fate, and they learn better social and life skills. They learn how to communicate and solve conflicts. So, okay, this is why you should do non-punitive punishment. How do you do it? Okay, 3 easy steps here. And they're all outlined in the book, Parenting with Patience. Step 1, get yourself calm. Time out is for you. Step 2, get your child calm. Time in is for them. And step 3, solve the problem. Time together. Okay, let's look at step 1. So time out is for you. Now let's go back to our little chip picture. When my son did this, what do you think? Was I a model of self-control? I know you weren't there, but I was there. And it was one of my better parenting moments, which is why I'm telling you about it right now. I was livid. There is nothing like deliberate disobedience that sets parents off, and that brings out the big guns like grounding until they're 30 or spanking or whatever. So I was so angry, and I'm very proud of myself. What did I do? I left. I took a time out. And everybody knows their triggers: mess, tiredness, kids that don't listen. Those are all really, really good excuses why we need to take a time out. And I know everybody says, oh, you can't take a time out, you have to deal with things in the moment. There is no research that proves that. Anybody can take a time out at any time and come back in 20 minutes a lot calmer and not regret what we're going to say. We're going to make better decisions, better choices, more positive discipline. So I have a bunch of calm down tools, and I talk about these in the book, Parenting with Patience. There's little cutouts at the back. So at this instant, what did I do? I took a time out. I said to my son, I am so angry. Nice iMessage. I need to take a time out. And I went downstairs and I had a good cry in frustration. And I phoned a friend. I'm not too sure which one that is, but it's one of them, probably this one, go out with people or phone a friend. So I phoned my partner and I was crying and he calmed me down. So that was my time out. But whenever you're really angry at your children, just take a deep breath. Stop, breathe, what do I need? Stop, breathe, what do I need? Say to yourself, what do you need? You got to put the rocks of yourself in the jar first. And timeout is a positive life skill. You want to show children how to take a timeout. Be the person you want them to be. The best way to teach kids about taking a timeout is modeling it, not forcing them into one. And use your I statements. When I said, I am so angry, I told my son, this is what angry people do. They go take a timeout instead of spanking you. Okay, step 2, the child. Time in is for the child. Now, what are children's triggers? What sets them off to anger? Hopefully at this point you're calm now and you have enough self-control, you can help them calm down. And they need it. So back to the chip example, when my son, who shared a room with his brother, when his brother saw all these chips on his rug too, the fight was on. They were scuffling and yelling at each other, and they needed help to calm down. So I was calm now. I came up and I took each by the hand and I didn't say anything. Don't say anything. Don't teach. Don't rationalize. Do not teach when everyone's angry. So we went and sat down on the couch and I started reading a book. 10 minutes later, the kids actually were starting to calm down enough to follow the book. and I got some literacy skills in. It was a good way to get everyone to calm down, and then we attacked the problem. Now, there are no limits on feelings. People can feel whatever. Kids can feel angry, frustrated, annoyed, but there are limits on behavior. That doesn't mean you can throw chips on the carpet. It doesn't mean you can hit your brother. And don't give power to anger. When people are angry, they need to calm down. They want to calm down. And when you discipline in the heat of anger, you're just making things worse for them, for you. If you're angry or your kids are angry, do not discipline. Do not punish. Calm down instead. Okay? Now, it's normal. Toddlers are very physically aggressive. It's common for them to hit, push, bite, and throw because they can't talk yet. That's a normal thing. They will grow out of it. It's a stage that they will grow out of. So if they're toddlers, how can you help them calm down? Redirect them to a self-calming tool. What I would do, because toddlers are very physical, is I would help them punch a pillow. That's what I would do. And you can use the same tools, like what you model. If you need to cry and be alone, that's okay. If you need to drink from a water bottle, that's okay too. But children need a bunch of tools. Very often we have the no list. No hitting, no biting, no throwing, no spanking or swearing. No, no, no. But what do we say yes to? What can they do with their anger when they're really mad in the moment? Well, they can have an anger pillow. They can punch a beanbag chair. They can deep breathe. They can hammer on the ground. They can stomp. They can signal you for a hug. They can draw their feelings. And maybe if they're biting, give them a teething ring. Anything that helps them calm down is what children need. And again, like I said, do not try and teach in the moment. Wait until those high emotions have calmed down and the intellect comes back. And you just do it over and over again. Eventually, children do get to a point of self-control that they can calm down. Older children, validate their feelings, give them space, reconnect with them after about 10 to 15 minutes. And then it's a good thing to ask kids, how do you want me to respond when you're angry? What do you want me to do? What would help you? And then connect and then make them clean up whatever messes they made when they're angry. Don't do it in the heat of the moment. Do it after everyone's calmed down. And don't forget hugs. Listening, active listening to children's feelings is really welcome at any age, whether they're toddlers, young children, teenagers, or even adults. Listening to them and saying, I can see you were really upset. I can hear your anger at this point. That is helping them manage their emotions. Okay, step 3. Now we get into problem solving. Fixing the problem. Now, in my book, Discipline Without Distress, I go through 135 tools, which I'm not going to go through here. We don't have time. So I'm going to go through the 10 best tools for every age. But if you want more tools that are age appropriate for babies to teenagers, feel free to check out this book. Back to our chip model. Okay, so the perpetrator has calmed down. The mother has calmed down. The brother has calmed down. Now we still have 3 problems here, okay? We have the chip mess. We have the problem of what is the child going to do the next time they're angry instead of doing this. And we also have the problem of the original problem, which was what are they going to do when they're hungry and dinner is 10 minutes away? So we had to solve all 3 of those problems. So what I did first was when everyone's calm, if you ask children to clean up the mess, they will. So we cleaned up the mess. He was 3. The best he could do was gather some chips together and spray the carpet cleaner and rub it a bit. But getting them to go through the motions teaches them how to fix the problem. And it teaches them how they feel good about being part of making it better, making restitution. So I did the rest of the cleanup though. But an 8-year-old, I would expect could do this, and same with a 14-year-old. A 3-year-old, nope, needs help. And then we talked about ways he could handle his anger better next time. So next time we decided he's going to stomp up to his room. And then we talked about what he would do with his hunger before dinner. And we decided that he could have a special tray in the fridge of healthy food if he was super hungry. He couldn't have the chips. That would be giving in, and that wouldn't be meeting my needs. But he could have carrots and apples, and that would meet both our needs. And that's what problem solving is about. So discipline is moving from external control to self-control. So let's talk about this in terms of brain science. So when we want to eat cake instead of vegetables, we all have varying levels of self-control. And it's important to remember that understanding self-control doesn't mean that we can exercise it. Same with children. Children understand rules, but they often don't have the self-control to follow rules. That is hugely important. The ability to follow rules in the face of internal desire grows with age, and it gets really, really good at about 13 and optimal good at 17, not before that. So really, self-control is where your executive function, that prefrontal cortex of the brain, overrides the desire for that dopamine hit. When you eat cake, your body is flooded with dopamine, but your executive function says, I shouldn't be eating cake. I'm trying to lose weight. And people with good self-control can put the cake away. People with not so good self-control eat the cake. And children are the same depending on their age. So when we look at discipline, is it temperament, is it development, or is it the environment? And for each child, for each discipline issue, it's different. But those are 3 good things to look at. This is the development of the 4 cortex lobes of the brain. And we're going to look at these as we go through different age groups. Now, temperament is inborn. It stays with the child all through their life, and every child is born with a different temperament. Best practices are that parents accept their child's temperament and work with it. It's kind of the how much of personality. And it's on a continuum. So about 40% of all children are born easygoing, about 15% of all children are born slow to warm, and 10 to 15% are born what we call high need. They're spirited or spicy children. And a mix of all above is about 30 to 35%. Okay, so this is rooted also in the brain. Temperament is about 8 different areas, or what we call traits. And on the left side is the easygoing temperament. On the right is the more spicy spirited temperament. And in the brain, the easygoing children have more left frontal brain activity. The spicy children have more right frontal brain activity. So an easygoing child will be easily distractible, which is an awesome discipline tool when they're young. As you can see, it's going to be a little harder for those spicy temperamented children. They're easygoing. They're not too sensitive. They're very adaptable long-term. They have, they're lighthearted, so they have lower energy. They have regular body functions. They have a low activity level, and their first reaction is positive. I got this mixed up. Sorry about that. Their first reaction should be positive when they're easygoing, and they have even-keeled moods. On the other end of the continuum It's pretty well opposite for the spicy children. They're persistent, they're sensitive, they take a long time adjusting, they have intense energy, irregular body functions, high activity level, negative first reaction, and they're quite moody. So they're definitely a more challenge to parent. Let's look at development. Now, children develop physical, cognitive, social, and emotional domains. This is the development of their executive function. This is the prefrontal cortex of their brain. As you can see, from 0 to age 3, not a whole lot of self-control here. Now, executive function comprises 4 components: working memory, the ability to hold 2 instructions in their head, focus, the ability to filter distractions, self-control. When we talked about that eating cake, look how that develops. And their planning. Okay, so from 0 to 3, very little self-control. From 3 to age 6, it is growing exponentially right there. That's a big, big stage from 3 to 6 in development. So you can see why children don't start formal schooling till about age 6, where they have enough self-control to sit still for a while, not bug their neighbor, not get up and run around. And then at age 13, it starts the other biggest leap until age 25. And it takes that final big jump right there at age 17. So if you tell a 2-year-old, here's a piece of cake, don't eat it, even though they may understand the no command, they will eat it because that's how much self-control they have. If you tell a 4-year-old, they're a little better than a 2-year-old, but not quite the adult, right? Then you ask a 10-year-old. You can expect a 10-year-old to put into place some self-control there and not eat the cake. And by age 17, you can highly expect that's the best you're going to get in executive function self-control. Right there. So that kind of helps you understand what a child's capable of. The interesting part too here is if I had to draw a line of when children stop hitting, it would probably be opposite to this line. So for example, 2-year-olds, their hitting would be about here. And when they're 13, their hitting would be about down there. And by adulthood, I would expect it to be down there. So it'd be a different line. It'd be like to there. And that's because their self-control increases. So their use of words to express their anger can increase. And their use of force or hitting decreases as they get older. So let's go through each stage. So baby 0 to 6 months, pretty well, all their brain can do is sensory input and output. So the bottom brain functions are what is most sensitive here and most developed. Their brainstem, their cerebellum, the occipital lobe. Back brain, bottom brain is most developed in babies. So that's why they just have sensory input, output, growing their motor skills. That's about all they can do. None of this frontal brain is very developed yet. So best tools here for discipline: fulfill their needs and learn child development. Toddler stage, 6 to 18 months, their whole job is to touch, taste, explore. They get into everything because their brain really, really wants to explore. And same with older toddlers. Now, the part of their brain that's most sensitive is that temporal lobe with the emotions. They're learning auditory, language recognition, their visual memory, their emotional responses. Very sensitive. So think toddler, temporal. That is what is most sensitive in toddlers, in addition to the occipital lobe, the cerebellum, and the brainstem. So these bottom brain functions are going very, very well. The brain develops from the bottom to the top and from the back to the front. So we're working our way up. And older toddlers, they have a whole explosion of feelings that they can't contain and they can't express because of their limited language development. So what comes out? Tantrums. They're starting to feel very independent. They oscillate between security and exploration. They love the power of the no words, and they have very little self-control and limited speech, which makes them little dynamos that you have to protect. Best discipline tool here is child-proof redirection. Up until age 3, child-proof redirection. You're not going to do a whole lot of teaching in these years because, back to their brains, they don't have a lot of information processing here or self-control. You can teach, but without that expectation that they're going to get it or they're going to listen. Most children under the age of 5 listen about 30 to 40% of the time. That means 60 to 70% of the time, they're not going to listen, and that's okay. That's a development issue. It's not a discipline issue. Too often we think, oh, if we don't address it now, we have to nip it in the bud. But really, you have many, many chances to teach the important lessons in life. The trouble is, parents feel they have to teach the most important lessons at a time when children's brains are ill-equipped to handle the frustrations of limits. So your child at age 2, you're doing damage control. You're just keeping them safe, keeping the environment safe. Not a whole lot of teaching going on. When they're preschoolers, yes, then you can start teaching. You're going to do most of their teaching in the school age years and the teen years, when they have enough prefrontal cortex brain development to understand the why behind why they can't do things. So preschoolers, they're doing a lot of thinking, questioning. So think preschoolers, parietal lobe. That's the lobe that's most sensitive. Now, and you can tell because they do a lot of questions. They're very active imaginations. They got a lot of fears. They have a heightened fantasy, and they're just so imaginative at that age. They're getting their verbal ability, but remember, their compliance or their listening is still very low. 30 to 40% of the time, they'll listen to you or do what you say. The rest of the time, they're not going to. So the parietal lobe is responsible for sensory processing, attention, language is picking up, objects in relation to others. So they're big questions on how the world works. And they're really lovely little people they're growing into, but not a whole lot of self-control. See, from age 3 to 5, they're getting it, but don't expect it yet. Best discipline tool here is action then talk. So using time in to help them calm down, teaching them calm down skills. Stay with your no. If you said no chips before dinner, do not change your no. Stick with it. That is structure, non-punitive discipline. And start introducing problem solving with them. The school age years, okay, ages 6 to 12. This is where kids are starting to think logically and concrete. These are some characteristics of early school agers, and these are of late school agers, the tweens, we call them. So school agers are still black-white thinkers. They don't have a lot of abstract thinking skills yet. That comes in the teen years. And they're very rule-focused, and they question a lot and experiment a lot, which is good. Now you can see here from age 6 to 12, they're starting to have enough brain power to understand consequences. Consequences before age 6 are not helpful. After age 6, yes, natural consequences, as long as they're safe, teach kids very good lessons that we don't even have to teach. Now, I'm not talking logical consequences that are parent imposed. Remember, we already discussed that. But letting them understand the course of their actions is really good. For example, one of my children spit off a Ferris wheel at a park, and the ride attendant made him get off and handed him a bottle cleaning solution and a cloth. And that was a natural consequence to his actions. I did not stop that. I gave the ride attendant full good on you. He needs to learn he can't do that. And he never did it again. So they're good. These are the years you're going to do most of your teaching. You model, they pick up everything. You listen and validate their feelings. You give them your I statements. I feel upset when you spit off a Ferris wheel because we have to wait for you to clean up. And then you problem solve. That's the best way to start teaching problem solving. And this is where you want to move into problem solving. Even if you are a punitive parent now, you're heading into the last third of parenthood. You need to start moving from parent control to parent influence. And that is moving from punishment to problem solving. Now, the teen years is the frontal lobe. Okay, so that is more, I'm sorry, that's not the teen years. Well, it is the teen years, kind of. Okay, as kids are moving into the teen years, 13, they're taking that final leap. Again, this yellow bar is where 13 to 25, they're gaining the most in their frontal lobes and their prefrontal cortex. So think frontal lobe develops first grade. Prefrontal lobe, think puberty, P for puberty. So, so this is baby stuff. This is toddler stuff. This is preschooler stuff. This is first grade stuff. And then that prefrontal lobe is puberty stuff. Okay. And that is where higher order thinking comes in. That is where executive function is really going to develop. Most kids will have self-control whether you teach it or not. Here is characteristics of early teens and later teens. I'm not going to read these because you can read them yourself. But they still really do need parents. But they need parents when they need parents. Best discipline tool for teenagers, negotiation. Yes, you're in the last third of parenting. Teach them, treat them, they're the adult they're becoming. So if you take the point of view, you and I are on the same team. It's you and me against the problem. It's not you against me, it's you and me on the same team against the problem. And problem solving is just figuring out what are your needs, what are my needs. Let's come up with some ideas together. Let's choose an idea that meets both our needs and do it. And then we'll check back in a week. Is it working for us? If it's not working, we'll revisit it again. Problem solving is the #1 skill employers look for in employees. As you can see, job-related tech skills are highly valued, but also our communication, teamwork, collaboration, and problem solving. And those 3 things work together. 80% of people do not lose their jobs because they're not technically brilliant. They lose their jobs because they can't get along with people. And that is why they need problem solving. And you're the person to teach that. Problem solving inspires creativity. Think, can we design a dresser made of 20 working drawers of unequal sizes to fit in a round space? Yes, we can. We need kids to think outside the box. We're leaving them big problems. So the best discipline tools for children and teens, what I often call is a walk and talk. I start off with an I statement. I'm displeased because you took the car and left it with no gas and I was late for work. So if that becomes a problem or they don't fix that, then we often go for a walk to talk out solutions or we go for coffee. that is the best discipline tool for teens, is work the problem, not the person, the problem. And it's great because they have enough brain power to understand the problem. And being that you have not punished them, they care about how it affects you. They want to fix things unless they have a stronger need, and then they still want to work things out so it works for both you and them. That means a lot of discussions and a lot of conversations. But wouldn't you want to put your time and energy into conversations and problem solving that builds a relationship rather than issuing consequences that doesn't build the relationship? Okay, so we've talked about development. I'm going back to this last slide. Is the last age of childhood is emerging adulthood, and it's age 19 to 25. And remember, that is the peak of executive function. Our brains aren't going to get any better than age 25. From there, it's all downhill. So those are really, really good skills to think about. Okay, we will also want to talk about the environment. Sometimes it's just easier to change the environment than another person. I use child-proofing the environment all through teenagerhood even. Even my partner, I use it. If my partner's leaving wet towels from the shower on the bed, I will change something in the bathroom so it works better for him to leave his wet towel on a rack. So you can add to the environment. For example, if your kids always fight in the car, have a selection of library books in the car, something for them to do. You can subtract from the environment. If you need to get out the door for a dental appointment, do not put on a 1-hour DVD video. Choose a 30-minute DVD video so it goes off at the time you need to get out the door. Substitute. So if your little toddler is grabbing a knife from the dishwasher rack, get their attention with something more fun like a spoon, and and then slowly protect that knife from the toddler. Change the environment. If something's not working, change it around, and simplify. If things are complicating things, simplify it. You can change the environment that you live in to make it work for better behavior. Okay, so the best discipline tool ever is a hug. If you don't know what to do, give your child a hug. It calms everyone down, it conveys unconditional love, and it starts from a place of compassion and love. And it's good modeling. From there, you can work to solve the problem. So a little recap for discipline. Age 3 and under, when they have little self-control, do these tools: supervision, child-proof, prevention, routines, distraction, redirection, validate their feelings, give your I statement, model good behavior, give them attention, and if all else fails, they're little, you can move them. They're not going to come with you to leave the park. Pick them up and get them in the car. 4 and over, they're gaining self-control. But remember, you can do all these things still, and now add, offer choices, problem solve it, make it a game, discussions, natural consequences, and sometimes you just have to accept it. It's a stage they're going to grow out of, whether you deal with it or not. Okay, so we've reached the end of our hour. Here's some age-related things you might want to think about. What age can kids bath alone? 8. What age do they stop putting things in their mouths? 4. What age can kids do chores without reminding? 12. What age is the most aggressive age of childhood? 2 to 3. What age can kids start chores and duties? 18 months. Yes, they can throw toys in a bucket. What age do children have feelings? Birth. What age can kids stay home alone? 12. What age do kids' brains stop developing? Technically, 25, although our brains still adapt all through our adulthood. What age do most children sleep through the night consistently? 5. What age can kids judge traffic speed? 9. They should never be left alone to cross streets before then. What age can kids think with logic? Logic is age 6. 13 is when they get their abstract thinking skills. So they can start to think theoretically at 13, but logically at 6. And that answers that question. What age do kids play together cooperatively? Starting about age 3. What age do they understand no means don't do something? Yes, about age 2 they can understand. But again, understanding no doesn't mean they have the self-control to not do something. They don't have that executive function development. And like I said, it begins about age 5 or 6. So when you say no to your toddler and they're reaching for a cookie and they're looking at you and you're saying no, yes, they understand the no, but they don't have the self-control to not take the cookie. And that is not a discipline issue. That's development. Do not punish that. What age do most kids stop hitting? It gets better at 3. They tend to stop hitting outside the family at age 7, and they stop hitting siblings at age 13, which is good because that's about the age that they could be charged with assault. So from age 0 to 13 is learning how to use our words to express our anger rather than hitting. And for the most part, it's done by 7, but for the most part, it should be totally done by 13. What age can kids do their own laundry? 9. What age can kids tell the commercial from the program on TV? 8. So keep this in mind. Development is very important. Your child at 3 who throws chips all over the rug because you said no has very little self-control. But age 7, they know they shouldn't throw chips on the rug. They have a bit more self-control. And at 13, they don't throw chips on the rug. They might swear, but they have a lot more self-control. And by 18, they're nice kids who can clean up their own chips mess if they do that. It's all a stage. It's not like we open up those brains and we pour in teaching. Yes, repetition does help those brains connect neurons. It does. And when we say things over and over, no chips before dinner, no chips before dinner, it does eventually sink in. But also their executive function grows too. Their self-control grows. By 18, they have great self-control and they can hold off till dinner. Okay, I'm not going to talk too much about sibling conflicts. That's a whole other workshop, but there's lots of ways to deal with sibling conflict. I'll just leave this up for a minute. Under 3 years, we want to say no, we don't hit, bite each other. You want to keep showing them ways to express their anger when they're not angry, and you just repeat. Teach them how to compromise. Maybe you need to use a timer or things. We use the bigger person button. 4 and up, you can use all these things, but teach how to express their I statements. I'm mad because you're taking too long on computer. Teach them how to problem solve with each other. It's a great life skill. And you can use all these little suggestions for ways to work it out. Okay, so again, here's our discipline recap. These are tools you can use for 3 and under when there's little self-control. These are tools you can use for 4 and over, in addition to the 3 and under tools. And remember, get yourself calm. You take care of you first. Time out is for you. Take 20 minutes, calm down, get a grip, take a deep breath, go in the bathroom and scream into the toilet and flush it, call a friend, whatever you need to do to get yourself calm, do it. And then come back. make sure your children are safe. If you need to put them into the crib to take a timeout, do it. Get yourself calm first. Then work on your child. Time in, help them get calmed down. And lastly, solve the problem. Time together. And there's 135 tools to do that. Remember, there are two people in a relationship. There's you and there's your child. You're growing a connection. Nobody else in the world is going to teach your child how to problem solve. They're all going to issue consequences. Schools, coaches, churches, politicians, police. But you have a vested interest in teaching your child how to work problems and relationships. And you have the time and energy to teach them. And it's like a bank. You teach them up until they're 18, they'll have those skills for life. You can do it. And you will never lose your influence in connected relationships. You'll lose control over your children as they age, as it's supposed to. By age 13, you're pretty well lost all your control. But what you lose in control, you gain in influence. And influence is that little voice of yours in their ears telling them, this is what I should do. This isn't what I should do. This is what my parents would want me to do. And that is how non-punitive discipline works. Thank you for joining me today. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. If you want to continue your learning, Discipline Without Distress is a great book on the whys, the hows of non-punitive discipline. Parenting with Patience is about helping ourselves get a grip, helping our children get a grip, and our siblings get a grip with each other. And Attachment Parenting Tips is about just whole range, no theory, but suggestions on how to handle every issue. The last word on parenting advice is just a cute little journal. And Unschooling to University is all about self-directed, non-punitive education. All of the 4 books, except for the journal, have detailed charts on child development and on temperament to help you understand what to expect at what age. So thank you so much for joining me for this past hour. I hope it was helpful to you, and enjoy your children's relationships. They will grow into these wonderful people who become your best friends. So thank you and happy parenting.